Okay, what I've got set up here is I've got a sample. You can see these numbers here. I've got 5 items in my sample. Okay, x sub I, x sub 1 is 2, x sub 2 is 6, x sub 3 is 8, x sub 4 is 4, and x sub 5 is 10. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to sum this column. We're going to do this in column format. You can see I've got the column titles up here. I'll explain them when I get to them. So 2 plus 6 is 8, plus 8 is 16, 20, 30. The sum of x sub I is 30. Now my mean, which is the first thing I'm going to calculate, it is equal to the sum of x sub I, which we just calculated as 30, divided by little n, which is the number of items in our sample. That's 5. So our mean, x bar, is equal to 6. Now we're going to go back up to our columns here. And what we're going to do is for each column, we're going to take x sub I, and we're going to subtract that mean of 6. Okay. You can see I've got those with the signs here, negative. Then we're going to add this column. Now, these are the deviations about the mean. It's the distance between each observation and the mean of 6. So here, we're negative 4. We're 4 units below the mean. So we're going to sum this column, and that's going to sum up to 0. That's how you know you did it right. Okay, and that's why we can't use x sub I minus x bar, the sum of the deviations about the mean. That's why we can't use it to explain variation in our sample about the mean, because it will always add up to 0. If it doesn't add up to 0, that means you made a mistake. Now, the next thing we're going to do is x sub I minus x bar. That's this column, and then we're going to square it. You can see x sub I minus x bar are in the brackets. So we just take what we got here, 2 minus 6, which was negative 4, and we're going to square it. That's 16. This next thing, put 0 in the brackets, square it, that's 0. Put 2 in the brackets, square it, that's 4. Put negative 2 in the brackets, square it, that's 4. And put 4 in the brackets, square it, that's 16, and we're going to sum that column up. And here I've got 40. So the sum of x sub I minus x bar squared turns out to be 40. The next statistic we're going to calculate is the sample variance. The sample variance is equal to the sum of x sub I minus x bar squared. That's the 40 we just calculated. And we're going to divide it by n minus 1. N is the number of observations in our sample, and you can see we have 5. So that's 5 minus 1. Put that in brackets. 40 over 4. My sample variance is 10. My sample variance is 10, 40 over 4. Now, the standard deviation. The standard deviation is simply the square root of the variance. So my sample standard deviation is equal to the square root of my variance. My variance was 10.